Hello, welcome to the bits video. Bits are one of three kinds of structures that I use on this website to discuss code. The largest of them are stories. So, for example, you'll find a C++ story and a Rust story in the site, which are essentially ebooks for those languages. There are sets of bytes, and bytes are discussions, smaller discussions of individual features of a language. And finally, these bits are code fragments, are all compilable code fragments intended to allow you to compare several different languages. So we have, at this time, we have bits for C++, for Rust, for C#, for Python, and for JavaScript. And I'll just very briefly tell you what they are and let you look a little bit on your own after the video is over. So we're looking at documentation for the CodeBits repository. There's a GitHub repository that has code for all the examples here, and it's really easy to clone the code to your own local machine and then build it, compile it, and run it just to get started quickly. These bits give you step-by-step instructions to do all of that in for each of the 5 languages, and we'll demonstrate a little bit of that here, but not too much. Mostly we'll let you look at it on your own. So we're looking at this documentation page for the bits repository, and here we see this is the video that you clicked on, and this is a list of the current bits we have. There is, aside from this repository page, there's an introduction that lays out the feature differences between the 5 languages in fairly brief terms. There's a tooling page, a tooling bit, that describes Visual Studio Code in some detail on how to set it up. The intent here is that everybody can use Visual Studio Code in almost the same way for all 5 languages on any of the Windows, Linux, or Mac OS platforms. I've tried them out on all of those, and I don't do much development on Mac, so I really haven't exercised them in detail on Macs, but have in Windows and Linux, and I've stuck my toe in the water, and things seem to work on Macs. So after the introduction tooling, there's a few references here, but this is where the examples start. So there's a hello world example for each of the 5 languages. Let's take a quick peek at the Rust hello bit. And so there's a synopsis that tells you a little bit about what this is all about. There are listings of the source code. This is just a little tiny hello world program. Its purpose is to allow you to quickly get up to speed, get all the tools working, and so it's just a little test bed to make sure that your tool chains work and everything works and you can edit and all that sort of stuff. So there's source and output and a build process and instructions for creating your own projects. And then we get down to view codes, and we do this for each of the 5 languages. So here's Rust running in the Visual Studio Code IDE, and this is a editor page, and this is a terminal window, and I'm using the Rust cargo utility to build stuff. Again, there's step-by-step instructions for all this in the materials that are presented here. And if you want to debug, you can do that. Each of the languages need a JSON launch file. I'm showing you how to build it here, and you won't have any trouble with that if you read over the instructions here. And that allows you then to debug. And you can see I'm in the middle of debugging something. You can't see the main, so you don't see, but there's controls for debugging. And we make all that work by providing plugins. So for Rust, we're using the Rust Analyzer plugin, and that does two things. That gives us IntelliSense and some error flags, and it also provides hooks for setting up the launch JSON launch files and running it that way. And then there's some tiny references for this. So that's a very typical example. That's a hello world example. There's data examples, which are more concerned now with not just helping you get set up and get ready to write some code, but it wants to do some comparison. So this is really, this data level is comparing the type systems for the 5 languages, and there are quite a few differences. They're really interesting, and I try to summarize that in these synopsis pages. And then there's code snaps, and if you open the sections at the bottom, you can see I can navigate around pretty quickly. So there's a code snaps and the source file and the output and the build instructions, and now the Visual Studio Code and so on. And if you want to jump around to the various of the pages, you can do that using this page drop-up. And you can move to through the levels. So right now we have a hello world level, a data level, and an objects level, and you can move to them. So here's the objects in C++, the data in C++, the home in C++. So you can move that to them with the next impreve, and you can move through languages using this sidebar: C++, Rust, C#, Python, JavaScript. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. I'm glad you had the interest to take a look at the video, and I invite you to work your way around through this code. This, I think, is a good place for people who are new to programming to start, and also for experienced programmers who want to pick up a language that they're not familiar with. So with that, I'll say thank you for listening, and goodbye.